And there is a ticking time bomb. It's just about to explode because as we're now learning, water production has been severely impacted across the country. We've been warned for quite a while now that it's approaching. A time will come when we'll struggle to find potable water in this country. And just look at the statistics there that I found that was interesting. Ghana Water Company is telling us that they're now losing up to, 60% of what they produce. Only 40% of what they produce is coming through your tap right now. And that is the drop in nationwide water production. That is scary. It used to be somewhere around 70%. So yes, when they produce the water, when they purify water, they are not able, obviously, to have everything in a form that you can drink. It's natural, because the water that is coming in is already dirty. You have to put in chlorine, and then you purify. Part of that you can have in your homes to drink. Part of that you just simply have to dispose of. It used to be 70%. It's dropped to now 40%, right? But I also found this data that was interesting. In 2022, the Ghana Water Company CEO said that at the time, 50% of water they produced went to waste due to illegal mining, by the way. So out of 100 liters that they produce, they are only able to get 50 liters out of that can come to your taps for you to drink. That's potable. Because Galamsey is so devastating that it's become very, very difficult to purify and for you to get as much purified water from that as possible. So just imagine that is in 2022. In 2024, it's dropped to 40%. So what that means is that in 2 years, between 2022 and 2024, 10% of the water is no longer available for us to purify. That when we purify, we have to throw away. We have to just simply lose because it's just too contaminated that no amount of purification can save it for you to drink. And I began to sort of just ponder over that. We're now in a situation where over a 2-year period, 10% of the water that we produce is no longer useful for us to drink. The water that we purify is no longer useful for us to drink because of Galamsey. If you are going to go by that metric, right, that every 2 years you're going to lose, and it's getting worse, by the way, by the day. It's not getting better. If you're using that metric, just give yourself the next, 8 years? And this will be down to 0. And there are many who had predicted way before now that a time will come we'll have to import water. So it is within touching distance now. And I say touching distance, but it's scary. It is existential. It is threatening our very survival as a people. Can you imagine that in 8 years, if you compare what we were in 2022, according to the Ghana Water CEO himself, that at the time, we're losing up to 50% of what we produce. This year, he's been speaking to us, by the way, and he makes the same point now, that we're now only able to get 40% purified. That tells you that in 2 years, now 10% of that has been added to it, to the bunch that we are not able to recover in terms of what we purify. Just pause for a second and think about that. And it's all down to one thing: illegal mining, right? Now, there's some areas affected more than most, right? Because we know that now. Some areas affected more than most. Cape Coast is one of those areas. We also know that Lamina is one of those areas affected. You have Konongo, and then you also have Adesso. Now, and the thing about these areas is that the people themselves there see the Galamsey happening, but everybody else is numb to it, or the Galamseyers themselves are so powerful that you dare not get in your way. So everybody has become accomplices in this particular area, and those who really want to do something about it feel they're powerless, helpless in the face of the devastation, so they leave it because we are all guilty. You drive, now Galamsey is happening right by the roadside. They are digging under roads. The roads can't now last. And we see it, we drive on it. The ministers do, and nothing is happening. Well, when we begin to import water, not even the bottled water that those rich folks believe they can get will be safe anymore. Because no amount of purification can purify the water. That in essence is what we are getting to right now. And we'll get into that and talk a bit more. And this data here also tells a very startling story. We are talking about NTU, and that's a measure of turbidity, right? And that for me just tells you, and anytime I use this just to make the point and to get a picture of where we are in our fight against Galamsey. So many people say and argue, so how do you measure the success of the war on illegal mining? This is how you measure the success. Check the turbidity of the water, and that will tell you if it's improving or it's getting worse. And we've seen that what you need for you to have water that you can drink, I mean the safe levels in terms of what you have in there, the nephelometric turbidity units in the water. You're talking about some 2,000 NTU. But we are talking now, according to the Ghana Water Company, of some 14,000, and this is in the central region, to be very specific, right? So that is huge. 600% above what is allowed. 600% above what is allowed. And that's the water that you're expecting Ghana Water Company to purify for you to drink. With whose money? Your taxpayers' funds will be doing that. But as you're now learning, as I said, even now, even with finding money to purify, they are only able to get 40% of the water that they purify for you to drink. 60% of that will be lost because of Galamsey. And why? Because the central region, 60% of the catchment area that they have to now get to purify is silted, blocked by Galamsey, blocked by the effects of Galamsey. So they are unable to purify this. 60% of it. So in other words, only 40% is what they can purify because the catchment field is so contaminated. It's shocking, is it not? And the stats just keep coming. It just keeps coming. We are very soon, the next decade, 10 years, we will be importing water. The evidence is there for you to see. We will have to import water from our neighboring countries. We have to lay pipes and bring the water in from Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and our neighboring countries just into water, just into Ghana, for us to have water running through your tap, right? And then you also look at the plants that we have installed in the central region to purify the water. The plant capacity currently is just 25%. Again, Galamsey is a guilty party here. Everybody else involved in this, including the politicians who have been given the power to act, who for political partisan reasons aren't acting because you're afraid of the votes that they will lose in the illegal mining areas. They're afraid to act. Once upon a time, a president said he's going to put his political career on the line. He's going to put his whole presidency on the line to fight this. He failed. He failed, and that is not even pretending about it. It's putting it mildly. It was a monumental failure because the evidence is there. It is not conjecture. And that is why I've taken my time to find these for you. We're talking about some 1.64 million hectares that we've lost already. And it's not only water, by the way. It is cocoa. Cocoa board is struggling. Have you stopped to ask yourself why? A huge part of why cocoa board is struggling is because of Galamsey. The Galamseyers are taking over the cocoa farms. Even the farms that haven't been taken over, the farmers themselves are now giving the lands away to the illegal small-scale miners to take over. So, of course, because cocoa is not as profitable as the illegal mining. And so we are not able to produce as much as we used to. If you're not producing as much as you used to, you don't have enough to go onto the market to sell. And you don't have enough to produce. The banks will look at your output and say, well, if we give you the money, and this is what you've been doing in the cocoa syndicator loan, we give you the money, can you produce enough to pay us? And we are checking, and obviously we can't because our lands have been devastated. You don't have enough lands to grow your cocoa anymore. So we're struggling to raise the cocoa syndicator loan. And because we are struggling to raise that loan, the city is struggling too, because if that money had come in often over $1 billion, it will show up the city. And if the city is struggling, you see the depreciation is now around 16, above 16, it's gone to city to the dollar, has now gone above 16 cedi to the dollar. If that happens, it has an implication and an impact on the inflation. And then everything else, the price of everything else goes up. We're talking about the food you buy, transport fares, fuel. So Galamsey has a devastating impact, not only on your health, but on the economy. Pause for a second and think about it. It all adds up. So the areas, though, that we know that are Galamsey endemic areas, in the Western region, Ashanti, and I'm listing this because we know the areas. We know the people behind it. Frimpong Boateng was once upon a time a cabinet minister, and he listed them. He told us who. His own colleagues sit in cabinet with them, and some of them powerful party folks. And nothing has happened. He was hounded out. He's been persecuted, but the evidence on the ground says that he was right all along. Because other than that, why do you have 14,000 NTU? Why do you have Ghana Water only able to get 40% of what they produce to the taps into your home? So let's have a conversation. This sounds like a broken record, I know. I mean, multimedia, we've been on this. We've never stopped. My colleague Erastus has been doing this. He won an award last year. We're still doing it. We have a documentary out. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Poisoned Rivers. Last year we had Poison for Gold. We have Poisoned Rivers. We're still on that campaign. We're trying our best. We're trying. But we can do very little. I've seen a lot of demonstrations about very useless things. This is something that people should be demonstrating about. Hit the streets and protest. But I'm yet to see anybody hitting the streets and organizing, mobilizing to hit the streets to say, this is about our lives. And there have been very few things over the last decade or so that has a direct impact on our survival than illegal mining. And we've been talking quite a bit. Journalists, well, that's what we can do. But it's up to you to now begin to protest with your feet. If you've seen this and you don't want to do anything about it and you're sitting in the comfort of your home, well, we're all in this. When we start importing water, we will see. My guest will join me for a conversation, another talk, who is bold enough to hit the streets and demand that the politicians who give them the power to act should act. Stay with me here on PM Express after this. PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex tanks. It is strong, it is tough, and I always recommend to use Syntex tanks indeed because, as you know, they are across the country and they have bespoke offerings for you to consider. They have 7 years warranty for you to obviously consider, and they have different sizes and shapes. You just have to call them and then you tell them what you want and then they will get it for you. They're across the country. Call them 0244 335 168. And also tonight is brought to you by Academic Times. The Academic Times Ghana is an incoming graphic and online publication aiming to collaborate with university authorities and students to ensure that students reach research is published in summary form. And so that, by the way, is one of the key publications to look out for, in addition to the Baraka Policy Institute, as they are celebrating the 10th anniversary, and they have a lecture with the theme Reflections on the State of Education in Ghana, Diagnosis and the Way Forward. And you really want to join that conversation. My colleague, Winston Amwa, will be moderating that. And if you didn't know, get tuning up because you'll find Joy 99.7 FM is back on there. Many of you have asked us to bring the station back on tuning, and we've done that. We've listened to you, so find us there and you would be happy. Tonight, joining me for a conversation, my guests who have been here on the subject before, many of them indeed. The Ghana Water has been, but let's have yet another conversation. That's what we can do. See, maybe it inspires somebody to take some action. And I know many have said that we cannot give up just yet. So Dr. Bob Alpha is acting executive director of the Water Resources Commission. Grateful that he can join us. Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining and CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. He's been on this campaign from day one, way back when a certain president said he's going to put his presidency on the line. We believed him. We formed the Media Coalition, joined him. We fought. The stability improved. The evidence was on the ground. And then the elections came around. They lost in the mining areas and they dropped the ball. So stability has gone up again to 14,000 NTU. Nana Yaberima Bania is the Western and Central Regions Communications Director of the Ghana Water Company. He's seen this in real time. And he's here to tell us a story of how we should prepare in the next decade to begin importing water. And I've told you the evidence already. This is no longer conjecture. It is projection based on facts. 2 years ago, when we purify water, we cannot have 50% of that running through your taps because it just goes waste because of Galamsey. It's not potable enough to drink. 50% of that 2 years ago. Today, 2 years on, that has dropped to 40%. In other words, 40% is what they are able to purify for you to drink. 60% of that, they must simply discard because it's not good enough to drink. So 10% has been added on to what it used to be there in 2022. Ghana Water Company is telling us that. So do your projections, do the math yourself. 8 years. 8 years, if this continues. And by the way, it's getting worse, not better. So we may even get there before the 8th year. Pause for that. Pause for thought. Evans Mensah, they issued a statement today, the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, an anti-corruption campaigner. Listen, you say, but what is an anti-corruption campaigner doing in this? This is corruption. This is corruption of the grandest order, highest level. No amount of billion you can steal can equate to literally poisoning our waters. It is environmental terrorism. Yeah, we cry foul when one person is poisoned. You put poison in water for one person to drink and the person dies. That's murder. If you put poison in water for, 30 million people to drink, what do you call that? Adam said, maybe I should start by asking you that question. Because many ask me when I put you on, but the anti-corruption campaigner, what is he doing on this show? So, yes, give me your thoughts there. What inspired you to put out that statement?
I wear several hats. So the hat that aligns with this was as chairman of Advocates for Christ Ghana. And our youth gate, the young people looking at what was going on were really disturbed by all the facts. And so they crafted it. I didn't even realize it had already been put out before I was called by Joy, simply because the enormity, and I think that you used some of the words earlier. I mean, it's almost like being in a horror movie, and yet you are so numb, you are no longer reacting to it. I, over the last year, have had to fix 3 filters for the water that comes into our house. And almost every month, we watch all the 3 change color within 1 week, within 2 weeks, within 3 weeks. It's almost as if this filter is no longer useful. I don't want anybody's paying attention. So the crisis we are talking about is real. It's not something that is imagined by a group of people sitting somewhere in the Western region. It's already affecting us everywhere. I think that perhaps the connection that has not been done, perhaps, is the number of people who are suffering health complications already as a result of what is going on. I think that perhaps if you layered that data onto what you're already saying, people will recognize that we're already dying. It's not something about 8 years from now or a decade from now. It's already affecting us. And if you look at the legal regime, it appears like we have all checked our responsibility. I mean, I took a look at the Article 41K that says every citizen is responsible to protect the environment. Categoric. If we're responsible citizens, this shouldn't be happening. Then you look at Act 703 and the responsibility of the minister in Section 72 to make sure that there are guidelines that protect the environment. And I'm wondering, where is our minister in all of this? Add to it when your president says that he puts his presidency on the line of this. It looks like we are jokers. So I think that the reason why we put out that press statement is simply because young people are also beginning to understand that we don't have time. As you put it, it's a time bomb. The ticking is as loud as, something that should be scaring us, and we probably are not listening enough. It's time to mobilize and say, let's get some reactions to this. And just in my mind, I'm wondering, in a political season, are these people going to listen to us, or do we need to wait till the new year to get onto the streets? I don't know. Perhaps this discussion will help us.
Yeah, and I guess it's the right time to bring in Uncle Ken Ashigbe, because he's been on the campaign for a while. Ken, and God bless your soul, because you have really kept faith with this particular campaign. But what must we do to bring change? And I'm not asking a question about politicians, members of parliament, ordinary citizens. Well, what must we do to bring change, to stop the apocalypse from becoming a reality?
Thank you very much, Evans, and good evening to you and to my colleagues and to our viewers. But I'm not too sure there's anything good about the evening, you know. You were asking the question about the poisoning of an individual and what it is. In a war situation, if you poison the water of your enemies, it's considered a grave war crime. So I wonder what people would say about a people who decide to poison their own selves. Who results, I don't know whether you've seen some of the fetuses, where there are deformation of babies in some of these areas where eyes are situated at where ears are supposed to be, where the phalanges are in different numbers. Situations where renal diseases are quadrupled what they used to be, and the age at which people are attaining it is going up. And so this thing about the turbidity we're beginning to see, 14,000 NTUs, which have to be, treated to less than 1, NTUs. It's just a culmination of leadership failure. And I remember writing an article, the article that led to the formation of the coalition. That was how many years ago? And this is how far we have come. So we need to change our modus operandi. This evening, we had a meeting of the media coalition against Galamsey, and we're planning a few things. There are a few new things that we are going to plan. And one of them is what my brother Senano was saying. It's about mobilizing other people. So, we will be coming to the likes of the multimedias and all of that. We will have a press conference, but at that press conference, we're going to mobilize labor. We're going to mobilize, the religious bodies. We're going to seek, currently there's only one leader in this country who is showing the things that ought to be done. No, two, for who has shown that 3 of his chiefs involved in an illegality. And again, we forget that we have our traditional judicial system. Take them through the judicial system, sit at Asanteman, and find them guilty and punish them. Juxtapose that with what the president did. When the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources pronounced Akonta mining as being involved in an illegality, Erastus had ample evidence to show that not only was Akonta mining within the Tanonimere Forest Reserve, but also a regulation that had been brought up brings a buffer. They were mining within the buffer close to the tunnel. You had then the Minerals Commission come to collaborate the point that the minister has said. We petitioned the IGP. The IGP referred the matter to the Director General CID. Up till now, when I sat on the same podium with the president at the Catholic Priest Congress and asked him, what was he doing about Akonta Mine? He sat on that podium and told me that as we spoke, Akonta Mine was not involved in an illegality. You have another example of the former Bosumere Freho MCE or DCE, who was caught live on tape, involved in an illegality. What did we see? At some point, we were told that he had a funeral, so he'd been given some time to go and deal with, if I poisoned you now, Evans, would anybody allow me to go sleep in my house?
No, absolutely not.
But that happened. And then what happened? When he came back, all we have seen is that he has been dismissed. And we know that if you look into the Minerals and Mining Act, there is no part of that says that that is the punishment you get for sinning against the Minerals and Mining Act. Let me give you another example. Heritage Imperial, and Heritage Imperial is mentioned in Professor Frimpong Boate's. Exactly. Go and check Heritage Imperial. Heritage Imperial were given an exploratory license, and any basic engineering, first-year engineering person will tell you that the tools you need to explore are not, tens of excavators into the Cobra Forest Reserve, to go and do that. But Heritage Imperial went to court against Erastus, and in their court document mentioned that they are mining operations. That means that they were mining. But we had gone to the EPA and asked about the permit status of Heritage Imperial, and the EPA had told us that Heritage Imperial did not have the permit to mine. I sat on your platform with the minister, the Honorable Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mrekuduka, and I told him this. He's still a Minister of State. What has he done about it? Nothing. So you see, when you juxtapose those two, the situation where a king will see his people and deal with it, what you begin to see is that those people will stop it. But when you have a situation where leadership have people close to them involved in this illegality, and we don't even see them being prosecuted, what happens is that this is what we create for ourselves. We now are designing an ecological system to go into extinction, and we forget that there was a Ghana before we came in. And this is what we're doing. But that has to change. So we're going to definitely mobilize a lot more people into the coalition. We're also going to start seeking opportunities to get lawyers to start bringing action to bring some change. And another thing we want to do this time is that our focus now, and again, Senano mentioned it, we can't wait till the next election. Senano, unfortunately, if you do that, by the time you do that, there will be no Ghana. So what we need to all do is to focus and say to the current president that you have the mandate to rule this land. So you have the mandate to make a change. We'll urge him to go back again to when he put his citizenship on his presidency on the line. We saw changes happen. He should go back to that again. We should call on the former president, John Mahama. We should call on the current vice president to say the time have come for all of them to rally around the president, and let's say that our priority is that we are preserving our water bodies, we're preserving our environment between now and the next 94 days till the next elections, and ensure that we can bring a stop to this, get the people out. And then next year we can begin to then, find ways of the progressive thing. Because when you look at the two manifestos don't show you that we are in a crisis.
No.
They don't show that we're in a crisis.
No.
And that has to change. So we need to get all parties to come around and say that this survival thing that we need to do should not be made any partisan thing. They should all declare to us that they support that action, and we are all going to fight now and not waiting for 2025.
And let me bring in the Ghana Water Company and the Water Resources Commission. Nana, so when that statement came from the central region, we quickly then realized that it's not, you're beginning to feel it a bit more, but it's a nationwide problem. So in your estimation, we've seen the numbers. In your estimation, how long before you are down to zero? Because currently, 60% of what the catchment area is silted. You are at 14,000 MTU. How long before you have to shut down your plant?
Thank you very much, and good evening to our viewers now. In fact, now it is the Galamsey operator, the illegal miners, who call the shots. They determine what happens. So we cannot tell. It depends on the level of their operation, the momentum that they gather.
I guess maybe if it continues at this pace, assuming nothing changes.
You'll be surprised to know that the Secheheman we are talking about now was dredged. We brought a dredger.
At your own cost?
Yes, at the cost of Ghana Water Company. We paid thousands of Ghana cedis to dredge the place. In fact, your reporter was there. Reporters from all over the place were there at Secheheman. March, this year, this year, 6 months down the line, and this is where we are. Just 6 months after dredging the whole place and making sure that we freed up space for water to come into the abstraction point, that's the intake. And now this is where we are.
6 months?
Yes, 6 months. March.
So it's taking 6 months for it to be silted again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just 6 months. In fact, it was after the 6th March, that I think on the 8th of March to be specific, if I'm not mistaken, about the 8th of March, I was there myself. I was at the plant, at the intake, the journalists were all there. And 6 months on, this is where we are. So you see, this thing called illegal mining on river bodies. Yesterday, I was on a particular TV station. I said this, that it is nothing but murder that is being committed. Why am I saying that? The usual dictum saying is that water is life. And what illegal miners are doing now is to take water away from Ghanaians to ensure that we have no access to drinking water. And if you depend on water to sustain your life, and there's a reason why they say water is life, because your human body has more water than anything else. So if that person takes away your water, it means he's depriving you your source of living. And once you take my source of living from me, you are killing me. So they are actually committing murder. So as to when we may shut down the plant, it will be difficult for me, but it will depend on the level of the operation of these illegal miners called Galamsey in Ghana.
Is it getting better or is it getting worse? You've been there over a period. What would you say?
I was in that area in 2017 when the ban on illegal miners was actually announced. And frankly speaking, thereafter, we saw visible signs of change as far as the parameters were concerned. Oh yes, maybe if you come there, we can give you figures to show that indeed something happened. And you see, the water will rejuvenate itself over time if nobody disturbs it. But now we are talking about 14,000 NTU, 14,000 nephelometric turbidity units. I mean, did we go or did we come? It's getting worse by the day. Let me tell you, the 2,000 that you showed, it was in our publication, as something manageable. Yes, we will manage. But you see, when the plant was designed, the information, the data I have is that they had in mind a turbidity value of just about 500 NTU. 500 NTU. When the plant was built, I mean the Secheheman plant we're talking about now, the turbidity they had in mind was 500 NTU. And now we are even thinking, oh, no problem. If it gets to 2,000, we may manage. Well, we are not now managing 2,000. We are managing 14,000. And you see, it is not only in Secheheman. If you come to Western Region, Daboase is a big issue. When you were mentioning those places that have purification problems, you left out Daboase. Daboase is also another hot area because we also abstract the Pra River at Daboase. Secheheman is at the upstream end of the river, so we are downstream. No, I mean Daboase is downstream. So whatever happens at Secheheman also happens at Daboase. Only that sometimes we are able to get less figures, lower figures in terms of turbidity. But Daboase is also suffering. Well, I'm sure from tomorrow I will issue another statement for Western Region also, for people to know what we are also going through. We dredged Daboase in January this year. Now, we should be getting ready to dredge the place.
Again?
Yes. And this is heavy amount of money we are talking about. So much money. Even the fuel alone that is used by the dredger, I mean, so much.
And I made the point about if you do the calculations based on the Ghana water figures, in a decade, you will not be able to purify water anymore to the level where we can't drink.
I will not be surprised if it happens like that. But I will not say it will be in a decade or two. I will not be able to say. But I'm telling you,
if we continue at this pace,
it is terrible.
I mean, because I was making the point. It was your own boss, Brimer, who in 2020 gave that figure.
Okay.
That 50% of what you produce was going away.
And I'm happy it's the MD who is giving this figure. Yeah. I'm happy it's the one who's the one giving it. So that it's not as if the PRO is spinning.
Now you're talking about 60%.
Yeah.
It's going waste. So,
and you see, you were saying that maybe, just maybe, we may have to import water from somewhere.
Water. You lay pipes into Burkina Faso.
Who should protect their water body for you in Ghana to buy water from that place? I mean who? If I were in any country and you want to import water to Ghana, I would say no, I won't sell my water to you. Yes, I won't sell our water to you. So it's so sad, but I am a religious person, very religious. Mm-hmm. So I live with hope. Hope is very important. So we are hoping that one day we will wake up and see, announcement on Joy News or Joy FM, no Galamsey anymore. All the Galamsey people have vanished. They are no longer there. Oh, that day I'll go to church with white, and go and thank God. And I know that day will happen.
You hope for
but
that
it must happen now than never.
And Dr. Alpha also is with the Water Resources Commission. What's the perspective from the Water Resources Commission? And I want you to give us a picture of our water resources currently that we have. I mean, the ones that Ghana Water Company relies on to purify for our sake.
Okay, good evening, Evans, and good evening to all the panelists. First of all, this is a very important topic that we are discussing. It has to do with lives, and I'm very happy to be part of this. Clearly, in your intro, I think you painted the picture very clearly. Apart from the fact that we are going to run out of water in no time, I believe the 8-year estimate is even too long, based on the information that I have.
Please share that information, because that is key. People need to appreciate what we are dealing with.
It could be sooner, and I will explain that. We don't have to get to zero for the system of the water treatment to shut down. By the time we get to even 20, the systems will not even be able to take the 20 out of the abstraction of water that they probably will be getting from the rivers. So we are not going to get to zero before the system shuts down. You already mentioned some of the figures in terms of the turbidity values. This is very common across the southwestern area. You mentioned some of the areas. And the picture is very gloomy. It is frightening, in fact, to put it bluntly. I really hope, and like the previous panelist said, it is not just about hope, but we need to keep doing something to trigger the change that we all need. I can tell you, it has a cascading effect, not only on the water supply, but the economy of Ghana, the lives of people. And we have a small group of people who are making millions out of this. And to paraphrase what you put as your poisoning people in this country, it is heart-wrenching to even think about it. And the impudence in which they operate, not only within the buffers of the rivers, but they operate in the rivers. And they have their own personal security to even prevent regulators from taking data of the water to analyze.
I mean, is that happening to you?
Yes, of course. My men go to the ground. We measure turbidity values almost every week. to see areas that were much better. What is the situation? But there are some specific areas that you can't even have access to. And
when you say don't have access to, what do you mean?
They have barriers, security posts, where you will have to show your credentials or the reason why you have to, access those areas. And sometimes we have to navigate our way to be able to get to the river and take samples. There are times we have to rely on satellite images. Using the color of the water, we are able to correlate and determine the values of the turbidities. And it matches very well with areas where we have direct access that we can actually take samples to the laboratory. So we are all on the same page.
And what you say, what you say is not only shocking, you use the word frightening. I want to borrow it. Because now the Galamseyers are preventing the scientists from testing the turbidity of the water.
Yes.
And they're erecting barriers and making it hard, I believe, with threats of harm.
Exactly. And sometimes when we persuade them that we are only coming to take samples, but we are not coming to stop the Galamsey, then they may allow us to go and take the samples. But that impudence is beyond imagination, Evans. We all know the problems. What we need to do now is to look at the solutions. We have talked about these problems for so many years. And we cannot continue describing the problems all the time. It is beyond imagination. Like the Ghana Water Company official said, turbidity levels are not even supposed to be more than 500 NTU. And we had that in this country before. We managed the water resources in a way that we had turbidity levels below 500 NTU. Now we are going beyond 14,000. This should be the worst in the world. I'm yet to see figures of this nature.
You mean worse in the world?
Well, we have, in Southern American countries, there are places where you can have this, but in limited scope. In our case, we are talking about almost close to 30% of our water bodies in that state. And I hear you talk about importation of water. Let's take that off the table. It will not happen. Ghana is endowed with water resources. We are the only country that receives water from 6 different countries: Burkina Faso, Mali, Togo, Benin, and Ivory Coast. These countries want us to help them transport water from Ghana to their countries also. We are trying to see how best we can do that through the Volta Lake. How can we then go back to these countries who want water from us and ask them to import water? Just think about the cost implications of that. Ghana is not ready for that. And I want us all to understand today, we have to fight Galamsey, protect our water bodies, and make sure we preserve the environment and the land. Importation of water is off the table. It's not an option.
And I know you say that because of the facts at your disposal, but if nothing changes, and from everything you've said that Ghana Water had said in the data, this is getting worse by the day. It's not getting better. If the water bodies, you said 30% of the water bodies are now showing NTU of 14,000, etc. If we get to a place where Ghana Water is no longer able to purify, what then happens then?
Yes. First of all, we should not allow ourselves to get there. I don't want to even think about what happens, because first of all, if we want to import water, the infrastructure that we need to lay will take us another 4 or 5 years. What happens within that period?
I mean, are there any other alternatives if you're not importing? Because you see, I asked that based on the evidence in 2022 that I keep referring to, because when I saw that, if in 2022, according to the Ghana Water Company boards, 50% of the water we are unable to purify because it's just too bad to purify. And it's worse now in 2024, 2 years later, 10% has been added to that. That is telling you that we are approaching that in no time. And you've made a point already that even 10 years may not come by, but by the time we hit there. So will we have an alternative?
Absolutely. I don't think there is an alternative. Of course, it is practically possible, but in terms of cost and the time period that we need to do that, then what happened to the people in 4 or 5 years that we have to begin to lay the pipes? Assuming we have all the money. What happens to the people in that gap 4 to 5 years? People cannot live
you're so
2 days
right.
without water.
You're so right. And I want to bring in my civil society friends back in the conversation. Evans Mensah, now you've heard the authorities, the officials. And by the way, Dr. Alpha is the acting executive director of the Water Resources Commission. The data there, I was talking about a decade. You've heard him say that we may get there way ahead of that decade I mentioned, that his scientists are now being prevented from even measuring the turbidity of the water by the Galamsey, he's saying. It brings chills. I rarely feel this way. It just brings chills, shivers down your spine, what we are talking about. When I was talking about a decade, but he says from what he's seen on the ground, it can be much sooner than that. That must be seminal moment. It is for me, at least, Adam.
Very, very frightening. Absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening. In fact, I've just been reflecting and telling myself, okay, so your initial question was something about, isn't there some corruption here? And truly, I mean, first there's the abuse of entrusted power, which has made people complicit, as Professor Frimpong Boateng's report showed. Now, what it means is that they're conflicted, and so they become responsive. And when I think about it, Dr. Ashigbe, I'm wondering, even when we mobilize, if we are mobilizing from a public policy advocacy perspective that we want the duty bearer, in this case the minister or his deputies, to act, we may not in the short term get the result that we want. You know, when Dr. Alpha says that we cannot wait, it seems to me that we need stronger citizen action on the ground to protect these water bodies, etc. Because the guys we have are unresponsive. They are complicit because there's an abuse of entrusted power, and they are preventing those who want to take action from taking action, even samples from being picked up. It means we are all at risk. We cannot assume that they're going to change that posture. And in my mind, we probably need some operational level action. So I'm just thinking through strategy. And Ken, you know, we're all part of that group of 4 or 5 who went, and I was shocked. I went to the CID to find out, have they taken any action with this entire thing? They said nobody had reported. And so nothing had happened. We went on a Friday, went back on Monday as a patriotic citizen just to say, please do something about it. It's now 2 years. So nobody's acting. And I get the sense that we've got to be more angry. We've got to be much more on the ground. We've got to mobilize the 57, 60% of the youth for whom this legacy, you know, it is a threat. It's an existential threat. And get people angry. The data needs to be up front for people to recognize we don't have time.
I mean, Dr. Ashigbe.
So, you see, Evans, beyond they preventing people physically from going to take samples. Now, what they are doing is that they have jammers. So if even you want to fly a drone into these communities, they block it. So that's how sophisticated they've become. But Evans, let me scare you. Let me give you Setra Himan's annual turbidity figures from 2015. It was 361 in 2015. It moved to 472. As late as 2022, it was 729 NTUs. That is what it is that we're talking about. Then Daboase was around 2,633. So I'm wondering what they are recording in Daboase as we speak. So look at that. Between 2022 and, 2024, this is how bad we have become. And all of that is a product of the elections. Because, again, and you were very right about it, 2016 we saw it. When we were going to go into the election, the NBC left it. And then it was free for all. Turbidity rose all the way and it came down. And interestingly, if you take the data for Bonsu, for example, when we started fighting in August, we came below 200 NTUs.
Yeah.
There are situations where the small-scale miners themselves have policed the brim and they were able to reduce it. But because we're getting close to the election, so I think that we need to take action. And Senator, I agree with you that this is not just policy advocacy anymore. And so when you see a journalist then leave his station with his licensed firearms and goes to arrest the Chinese, that is where we have come to. And there are various knocks in all of this. As we speak, when the Chinese are arrested and they are taken to court, we are told that they don't have interpreters. So we should be calling on the Chief Justice as well and asking her to ensure that there are interpreters to be able to deal with the challenges that we face. So we need real action, and it's not about heritage, about any young people who say, don't delude yourself that it's about your children. It is about you today. It is about whether you will be able to survive it. Because with all these challenges that we're talking about, the NTUs, that is so bad. The fact is there, and there's evidence that have been done, tests that have been done in KNUST and other places, led by, with Erastus and all of that. That shows that Ghana Water might not be able to take out all the heavy metals that is in this. So the food that you eat, the water that you drink, you are not even too sure what is happening to that. And are we talking about importation of water? Don't you see imported water in some of these, when you go to some of these supermarkets?
Yes.
Don't you? Most of these people that we're talking about now, our farmers, when they are going to their farms, now what they do is that they carry water from home.
Yes, and take the farm. And that was confirmed by Cocoa Board. So Cocoa Board CEO said it, that the farmers in the cocoa growing areas who get their farms watered properly, they have to now carry water from their homes. In other words, they're turning on their taps that has been purified by Ghana Water, carrying it to the farms to go and water their crops there. And by the way, as you say, eventually, in these areas, in Central and Western region, even that water that they now carry to their farms will become difficult for them to access. That's the problem you're having in the Central region, correct? You're not able to produce enough water to now serve everybody 24 hours.
So now, Central region, what it means, the figures are that instead of being able to produce 6.6 million gallons of water a day, we are now producing 1.6 million gallons of water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a huge
and we
drop.
are talking about 8 million citizens or customers. I'm talking of customers, not resident customers who need the water in Cape Coast. And then we have Elmina, 4 million,
That's a total of 10 million for the two areas.
8,000.
Okay, 8,000
customers.
Okay.
And then Elmina, 8,000 as 4,000 customers. And if you are talking about residents, they are far more than that. But this one is customers who are in our books.
Yeah.
Evans, let me tell you this. We shutting down our plants. We shut it down all the time. So, if the turbidity goes between 1,000 and 1,500 NTU, they shut down the plant. Every time it gets there, they shut down the plant because the plant cannot take any turbidity beyond that. Osino, same.
This is 1,000.
1,500 NTU, they shut down
between
the plant.
1,000 and 1,500?
Yes, they shut down
But what is the NTU now in Bonsu?
I don't have the current figure now, but what I'm saying is that whenever it gets there, they shut down the plant. Every now and then, they shut it down.
Have you shut down recently?
It happens all the time.
Okay.
It happens all the time. Yesterday, I spoke to the water quality manager. And then Osino, the same thing is happening. Because the plant has been designed in such a way that once it goes beyond 1,500, they have to shut down the plant. Let me tell you, some time ago...
are those two plants operating now?
They are operating now.
Okay.
They are operating now. But whenever it gets beyond these figures I'm talking about...
Doesn't mean that it's below 1,500?
Yes, it must be below that level. Otherwise, they shut down the plant. At some time ago, in the eastern region there, A treatment plant was shut down for over a year. Can you imagine if Dabuase is shut down for even 1 month, or Sechehiman is shut down for even 1 month? Even the letter that is coming is no longer coming. What will happen? So it is something that all of us might be concerned about. It's not as if Ghana Water Company are making noise or they are, adding whatever. No, we are not spending anything. We are only talking about a reality, something that is threatening our very livelihood as Ghanaians.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Dr. Bob Alpha, thank you. And we will join the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining. Now that you're mobilizing, you have our support. We will join this campaign. Definitely, we need that. And Dr. Alpha, you will recruit you into this campaign also, because your men are at risk. We are all at risk, by the way, but they directly more so as we go. And so we'll revisit this conversation once Dr. Kenneth Shigbe and everybody else align and the strategies are about to be announced. We'll have this conversation. Every week, if we must have a Galamsey conversation on the show, we will have it. And the right time to have it is now, because the politicians, they don't want that noise. So if we force them, they will act. And once they make those commitments, we can hold them to 2025 and beyond. Enjoy the rest of your evening.